This week, we air our 12th pre-recorded segment called Say Easy, Do Hard. Inspired by my co-host, Mr. Jason Albuquerque, we discuss crypto agility. With Q-Day getting closer, regulatory guidance pushing firms to migrate to quantum security in the next 5 years, and an extensive remediation backlog waiting to be discovered, security leaders must start their quantum security migration today. Easier said than done. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly.
Zero trust is clearly the future as threats get faster, quieter, and harder to detect. But implementing it shouldn't disrupt the business. ThreatLocker enforces default denied execution in a way that remains enterprise-ready, scalable, and operationally clean. Unknown software is stopped cold, trusted apps stay contained, and drift is locked down across the environment. It's zero trust that works in real enterprises and prepares you for the threats ahead. See why CISOs are adopting it at securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker. Right now, with Tanium, IT and security teams complete patching programs in minutes, not weeks. Reduce software vulnerabilities by up to 97%. Cut incident response times by up to 99%. This is not just IT, this is autonomous IT. Making business, your business, unstoppable. Tanium, autonomous IT, unstoppable business. See more at securityweekly.com/Tanium. Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 440, recorded March 9th, 2026, but will air on March 23rd, 2026 to kick off RSAC 2026 conference. I'm your host, Matt Alderman. Joining me for the Say Easy, Do Hard segment are my co-hosts. First, the aforementioned Mr. Jason Albuquerque.
Hey, Matt. It's great to have another Say Easy, Do Hard on the books. I love it. It's funny how we go through interviews and all of a sudden we pick up on all of these opportunities for Say Easy, Do Hard, right? So this was a great opportunity to talk about what's coming. It's 60 degrees here. It's amazing, but I still have snow on the ground from the blizzard.
Because you got like, what, 39 inches or something crazy,
39
right?
inches, so it'll be a while. Some of the parking lots are going to have snow in them and probably till April.
Also joining for this segment, Summer Fowler. How's it in Pittsburgh?
It's gorgeous here. As I said, it's fake spring, so it's amazing today. It was amazing all weekend, and then it's going to snow again this Thursday. I hopped in here. I snuck away for a midday yoga session. Decided to keep my hat on because I wanted to also look like I didn't have a lot of hair on top of my head. So I fit in with the script.
I love it. I got a fresh cut too.
Yeah. You're going to see all of us are short on the hair today,
right,
Summer.
Right.
Yeah. I'm actually just hoping that it's not good enough that you can actually see my whiskers here. That's
Right.
Got you covered. We're good.
Late 40s.
Yep. So Josh Marpet stepping in for Ben Carr. Ben got tied up today. And what I didn't realize, Josh, thank you for coming, by the way, is that you actually have done some stuff on quantum. So you're kind of our resident expert. So welcome.
A useful accident. I'm not complaining. I'm happy to be here.
So I did, just so everybody knows, I tried to get an expert on. I went to a few different sources. Just the timing of the segment didn't work out. But I did get a ton of resources. And then Josh comes on and he goes like, wait, I just wrote something on quantum half-life here. So I'm going to throw an image into the show notes before we publish on this one. But I also linked a lot of resources in this article segment for the viewers. I'm going to start with a blog post from IBM. So IBM's been on the forefront of this. I actually tried to get someone from IBM on. They're actually doing a lot of workshops, so it was really hard for them to coordinate. But there's a blog post out there, and there's also a link to a free, an open source scanning tool, which we'll get into in a bit, in the show notes. And the reason I brought this up is I wanted to define crypto agility. This came up on the Forrester segment we did, 3-4 weeks ago. We had Sandy Carielli on. We were talking about Q-Day, and this term crypto agility came up. And I think, Jason, you're like, that's a really good say easy, do hard. So here we are. So crypto agility means that a system, platform, application, or organization can rapidly adapt its cryptographic mechanisms and algorithms in response to changing threats, technological advances, or vulnerabilities. Okay. That means as we prepare for Q-Day and as we have to move into quantum safe cryptographic algorithms, we also need to think about making those protocols exchangeable or changeable on the fly as the landscape changes, because we don't know how fast this is all going to move. And we don't know which algorithms are going to get kind of invalidated as we move through quantum computing. And so if you're going to go through the work of swapping out to crypto safe algorithms, then you better make sure that you can be crypto agile, which means you can swap those again easily. Otherwise, you're going to create a mess for yourself.
And guys, I mean, we all know that there's this underlying risk that a lot of organizations have. We're not good at asset management. That was another say easy, do hard, right? Most organizations are really bad at it. So there's this rigidity tax that we have here that organizations are going to have to fight with. They don't know what they have. They don't know their assets. They don't know the current state of crypto, right, within their organization. So at the end of it, this isn't going to be something easy like a patch deployment. This is a structural capability that organizations are going to have to go through. It's an architecture. You're not changing a light bulb. You're rewiring the house at the end of the day. So we have to have a conversation around knowing the current state, knowing what exists today, and then building that path and that architecture into the future. And that's a hard thing to do.
I want to point out, Jason, that what you said was beautiful because, and part of it is beautiful because they're so screwed. Because I sat down and I said, okay, so what do we have to look for? Asymmetric encryption, right? That's what's vulnerable to quantum decryption. And the problem is that it's in so many more places than people think. It's not just your firewalls and your VPN endpoints for TLS. It is, and by the way, the concept of TLS 1.2 expiring and sunsetting this year is a whole different one, but we'll talk about that later. Don't worry, there's more. But also the fact all of your HSMs, all of your internal certificate authorities, your ADCS that you've been using to run your internal certificates, all of the different places. I came up with 36 different types of asymmetric encryption. Now, like some of that was broken down, like TLS for internal browsers, TLS for external browsers, TLS from client browsers, things like that. But that's all TLS. But still, the fact is there's a lot more places than people think there are to find asymmetric encryption. So discovery is, we suck at it.
100%. I mean, this is one of those consequences, right? Where we're not prepared. It's much like the conversation of, I want to implement AI, but I don't have my data classified. It's in that same vein of we didn't do hard work up front, right? We're not doing this hard work up front.
But it's boring.
But it's also what we're seeing with AI, right? I mean, it was with cloud. Yep. It's with AI. It's with all of the things that you mentioned. Because I sat down, I thought, all right, preparing for this segment, what are the things that I would do if I needed to, update my architecture on a system to be crypto agile? And it was literally the same things that you need to do for all the other. It's the inventory. Yep. It's the tiering and prioritizing of your systems, right? So which ones are you going to focus on first? It's what's your current algorithm posture? Third-party dependencies. Do you have any that have hard-coded secrets or crypto, right? So, you got to look at that. Define your crypto targets. And then I was even thinking, I didn't know if it would be, does cryptography become part of infrastructure as code, or do we actually write cryptography as code? Oh, good, Josh, go.
There are these things called C-BOMs, which are cryptography bill of materials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now you've got the concept that I want to, if I'm selling an application or a device or whatever to somebody else, I have to prove that what's on the device or the application or whatever, plus whatever backend system SaaS that it interacts with, I have appropriate cryptography for the classification and criticality of the data that it touches, moves, processes, works with, appropriate to that data, to that process, to that exchange. For example, and this is where AI, your point was brilliant, Summer, because if I'm using restricted data, I want TLS 1.3 with post-quantum cryptography, and I want it tomorrow. If I'm using internal only data, like, okay, I want, TLS 1.3, TLS 1.2 is probably okay. And if it's public, like, just print it out and throw it on the streets. It's fine. Don't litter, please don't. But like the data classification aspect is still relevant here.
Mm-hmm.
So your point about that is lovely. Well said.
So the question on the table for our listeners, guys, is where do they begin? Where do they start?
Yeah.
How do they start doing the discovery, right? Where do they begin to start building this quote unquote asset inventory for them to be able to take the
You
step
buy a
forward?
really expensive tool, right? Isn't that what you're
No.
supposed to do?
No, but you don't have to. So
Blinky lights.
right. So as part of trying to get an expert on, after I couldn't get the IBM team on, I pivoted, went to my network, and I ended up talking to some folks over MITRE, because MITRE has the Post-Quantum Cryptography Coalition.
Yep.
And they're starting to publish materials to help people, Jason, through these steps, right? And so these are also linked in the segment. There's a link to what they call the migration roadmap. Okay, so they've published, I can't remember, I have it open in front of me. It's a 20-page PDF. It's the Post-Quantum Computing Migration Roadmap. And it starts to walk you through the steps, right? So obviously there's preparation, right? So some of you talked about this, right? Okay, I got to identify first my stakeholders internally, but then I got to go out and I got to do my inventory and I got to start to prioritize, right? It lays this all out in this PDF document. It gives you kind of the starting points and then the steps you're going to have to go through. It all really starts with inventory. So I said, okay, what inventory, what can I use to inventory? So the PQCC, the Post-Quantum Computing Coalition, has also published an inventory workbook. Now, if you want to do it manually, they give you an Excel spreadsheet that you can download. And again, the link for this is in the article, in the show notes. So it's an Excel spreadsheet. I actually have it open here on me. And what it does is it lays out some of the things you have to capture around these systems. Okay. So if I pull this thing open, you're going to see the asset name. What type is it? Right. To your point, Josh, it's not just, your cloud keys or your software keys. There's hardware keys. There's all kinds of different types here of system types that are impacted. And then it walks through just a number of things you have to track, right? So there's a great starting point out there for people who want to do it manually. And I said, okay, that's great, but nobody's going to do this by hand because it's going to be way too hard. Like, could you imagine having our teams running around going, okay, let's go inventory all of our stuff manually? No. Got to find a tool. So I did. I found a couple. So, and this is where I found the C-BOM, Josh, right?
The cryptographic bomb, exactly.
Yes, the cryptographic bomb, right? The cryptographic bill of materials. And so some of these tools actually will help you build the C-BOM, okay? So there's a couple open source tools out there. So Josh, to your point, do I have to go buy an expensive solution? No.
Dear God, you probably already own half of the tools you need. You've got a vulnerability scanner. Guess what? They check certificates. Mm-hmm. You've got a configuration management database. You should. It probably has at least some of the images have cryptographic systems or processes in there. You have a certificate lifecycle management system. You should. You do know that certificate lifespans are dropping, right? So if you have one of those, remember 2029, they're 47 days. So by 2029, you better have a certificate lifecycle management system or you're screwed. All right. If you're any size of enterprise, those are going to tell you what your certificates are looking like. There's so many systems out there you probably already own. Please don't buy anything right off the bat.
There are like
Okay.
30 companies at RSA that are hoping no one listens to this on the 23rd because they're going to be
Right.
selling some system.
And I'm at RSA with Cyber Risk Alliance, and I'm sure that there's going to be people coming by going, "Where is that son of a?"
I
But
will be
seriously,
there as well, so they'll know where to
yeah,
hunt
I
me
think you and I
down
are
in
the primary
Broadcast Alley.
interviewers for
Yeah,
people. But
exactly.
don't buy a tool right now. But that goes to why aren't I in a hurry? Don't I have to really, really speed things up? So we should probably talk about timelines. Is that okay, Matt?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Timelines. There are two numbers that you care about. In 2030, every single cipher suite that the NIST currently allows you to use as part of TLS 1.2 and 1.3 are deprecated. But as of 2035, every single one of them is disallowed. You're not allowed to use them anymore. Oh, but that's 9 years away. What do I care? Josh's hairline will be farther back. His eyebrows will be bushier. What's the big deal, right? Come on. The problem is that number one, you don't know how many places you have asymmetric encryption. I guarantee you it's at least triple the amount that you think you have. At least most companies I've worked with, it's about this many times. That's 10 times for the people just listening. Okay. I held up all of my fingers. And secondly, so you've got to find it, and then you've got to start negotiating with the people that own it or develop it or manage it. And Jason and Summer, please talk about that.
Oh, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, as I was going through this checklist, one of the key activities is identify stakeholders and develop strategic messaging, right? So we talk about it on this show all the time that relationships within the organization are super important. And at the end of it, you're not necessarily going to be able to disrupt one of your business units right away. You're going to have to plan these things out. It could take years to plan this out. So that 2030 timeline, it's going to come faster than anybody ever thinks, right? Because there's going to be disruption to your business applications. There's going to be disruption to your business, disruption to stakeholders, departments. You have to start building that trust. You have to start building that relationship, start developing that strategic messaging out to your peers, to the C-suite, to the board of directors. You have to go get that buy-in.
In I think the other challenge here is you don't own all these cryptographic algorithms either, right? So the other thing you have to start thinking about is who else do you have to work with and do the exact same thing, Jason? So you have to do that internally. You also have to do parts of that externally. Now, I know certain vendors are working on this already, but for areas that haven't, you've got external exposure here as well. You've got to start putting messaging out there. You got to start working with those external teams because you're reliant on some of their capabilities to get there.
And it may not just be limited to your vendors. It may be partner organizations that you have business to business connectivity with. It may be clients. This may affect your service to your clients. So you have to work with your clients as well.
That's the big one. You can go, hey, Palo, I own a gazillion of your firewalls. I need you to upgrade us to post-quantum crypto on all of my firewalls. And they go, yeah, you're within the maintenance agreement. We're working on it. We'll be done in 6 months. That's fine. I'm good. You know? But then you've got the problem of you talk to your vendors, not like Palo, but your data sharing partners.
Yep.
And you're like, hey, we're going to be sending restricted data across with TLS 1.3 and post-quantum crypto starting in, June, whatever, right? And they go, we're not going to be ready for 4 years.
Exactly.
You're like, whoa, what do you mean? That's our new policy is as soon as we can do it, we only send restricted data, going back to data classification, of TLS 1.3 with post-quantum crypto. To go, we're not going to be ready for 4 years. Do you have the right, the authority, the cojones to say, well, then you're not going to be one of our data sharing partners. Have a nice day.
Yeah. And what does that take to disrupt? That could take years to switch out of a vendor. Hello, 2030. Here we come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the point. Now, but let's be a little nicer for a second. Because remember, the first one that's going to get quantum decryption is going to be a nation state, probably China or the US. Okay. I'm not going to talk about the brain drain from the US currently because that's pretty obvious. So let's be honest, it's probably going to be China. So China gets quantum decryption. Is your company adversarial threat model include China? If the answer is no, okay, then you're fine for a year or two. My concept is of a stepped pyramid. All right. Every step is another level of company getting quantum decryption, and about 2 years in between. So nation state, multinational defense contractor, large defense contractor, medium-sized contractor, big enterprise that's not a defense contractor, and it keeps going down from there. So you have to determine where on that adversarial threat model is your adversary, at what step of the pyramid.
Although if I'll play devil's advocate on that
Please,
one, Josh,
please,
for a
please.
second. If I am a nation state that has this capability and I am also a leader in the AI space, my research right now is modeling out where I can create the most chaos. And it may actually be taking the marriage of crypto and AI and hitting some of the small to mediums that I know are not ready and just creating mass chaos.
You know,
Or hey,
that's
wait
an
a minute,
interesting point.
critical infrastructure that's not ready.
Right.
Yeah, look at the energy utilities. How many energy companies are not ready
That's it.
for this because they're public utilities. They don't
Yep.
have the money for proper security. We all remember the sodium hydroxide incident with TeamViewer, right?
Yeah.
And how many of those are not ready for this and would just like things would go bad? So we need more security around things like energy companies, embedded devices, everything that is hard to fix.
Yeah.
We need better security around.
So that was my third guess that I tried to get on as an expert, because there's a whole different angle to this from an OT perspective, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us are thinking IT systems and IT crypto and cryptographic stuff, right? Which is fine. But the OT environment's susceptible too, and it's different in that environment, right? There are different things you have to think about in that environment, because are you really going to swap out these algorithms? Like, so there are a bunch of challenges in the OT space. It's going to impact energy, healthcare, other critical systems. So if you're in one of those environments and you're in the critical infrastructure realm, there's even some more difficulties here that you're going to have to get your arms around, because now you got to figure out in there, it's more about layering technologies in to prevent access into those environments, because you're not probably going to be able to swap things out as easily in those OT environments.
Yeah, because these are the verticals that are notorious for having technical debt. Technical debt for the order of
Healthcare.
magnitude of 20, 30-year technical debt.
How many healthcare systems have you looked at, anybody, that have Windows XP or Windows 98 or Windows 7 still
Absolutely.
running? Okay. And how many energy generation places, because, oh my God, you can't upgrade those. Oh dear God, it's connected to the X-ray machine, the CAT scan, the MRI machine, the PET machine, whatever. Okay. And embedded devices, same exact thing. Energy companies, energy transmission, all of this stuff is ancient stuff. So we have to ring fence it. We have to segment the living crap out of it. Okay. We have to move the encryption outward. Oh gosh, doesn't that sound like a microservices architecture, like we've all been advocating for how many years? I'm just saying, it sounds like it. Don't take my word for it.
I mean, here's the, it's all a chain of events, right? Because we talked about, number one, doing a discovery and figuring out what you have. Then secondarily, reaching out and making sure leadership and stakeholders are involved in this conversation. Well, not all of us are going to have tens of millions of dollars to re-architect this stuff over the course of a few years. Now it's about prioritization. We have to prioritize what we're going to hit first, aren't we?
It is, but it's also about communication.
Sure.
It's internally prioritizing what we want to do first, and it's externally communicating with our data sharing partners, our vendors, our infrastructure providers. Like, when are you going to be ready? What's going to happen? Here's what we can do now. Here's what we can do every 6 months or a year or whatever as we go down. Here are the things we can't fix. Here's what we're doing about it. So communicating that into your value chain is a huge thing. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah,
So
I think the other important thing about it is, showing all of these things as your portfolio of work and not distinct separate activities. You're going to have to do an inventory. You're going to have to do this prioritization. It should be collect once, use many times, or collect continuously, but use in many places. And if you can tell that story, then it's going to make a lot more sense and not sound as wild to other executives and to the board, because it doesn't look like these distinct programs that all require the same thing.
Can I hop on that for a second?
Yeah.
Because this is where you get the money to do all of this. You already have a zero trust initiative. You already have a data classification initiative. You already have several different initiatives that this is exactly the same thing as that. You're just taking the zero trust money. Oh, you remember I said ring fencing in your vulnerable stuff? Gee, isn't that zero trust? Okay. Inventorying all of your stuff. We have a configuration management database inventory project we have to work on because we don't know where all our crap is. This is a really beautiful way to pull together lots of different initiatives and get 2 FERs, 3 FERs, 4 FERs, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but to Summer, to your point though, it has to be continuous, right? This is the concept of being the crypto agility component, right? Which is I have to know this inventory forever, right? Because when a crypto algorithm gets compromised, I have to know where that algorithm is so I can swap it out later. So we can't think of this as a one-time exercise, which is unfortunately what I think a lot of people are thinking is they're like, oh, I got to do all this work over the next 4 years and then I'm done. No, you're not done. That's just the starting point, because as the technology changes and some of these algorithms fail, I need a place to quickly put my finger on where all those crypto algorithms are and how can I quickly swap them out from the agility side, right? And so this can't be one and done. We have to think about this continuously, which means, Josh, not only do we have to tie in these initiatives, we have to make this a living, breathing component of our security program going forward.
All of the initiatives we've mentioned are also the same way. You have to classify every piece of data you come up with. It's not just let's classify what we've got and we're done. You have to make sure that you are doing zero trust everywhere. Authentication barriers, APIs, instrumented systems. Matt, your point is beautiful and it's correct for all of them. So we have to do this on an ongoing basis because as an algorithm goes bad, okay, because here's the thing. TLS 1.2 came out in 2008. Something like that. We haven't screwed with encryption in 15 years.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We're about to enter a new era where, just like it was 20 years ago, because I'm old and remember this crap, we were switching encryption ciphers every week.
Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet MITRE, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. MITRE delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software deployment and support, MITRE streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, MITRE gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to MITRE for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/MITRE to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/MITRE, METER.
We haven't done this in a long
So you bring up a good point, Josh, because at the end of the day, how are we going to accomplish that in a timely fashion? It sure the hell isn't going to be open up 1,000 tickets to go do the servers and have your techs go out there and muscle it in. We need automation.
You're going to have a certificate lifecycle management platform.
Yeah, this is going to be more like a vulnerability management kind of program when you think about it, in less than a project. So it's going to have to move into something like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to coin it now as I'm inspired by how I came home today, because you need to be agile and nimble. I think we should call it cryptoga. So it's cryptography and yoga, where you have to be super flexible. So my RSA booth is
awesome.
already done,
amazing.
but I feel like I could have a cryptoga there. Maybe a black hat.
Right. Yeah.
I'm crying. That is so funny. That is awesome. Okay. Cryptoga.
I can just see a cipher doing downward dog.
It's in pigeon pose, right? Yeah.
So just like certificates and their lifespan shrinking is inspiring certificate lifecycle management vendors, what we're going to see is the same idea for all asymmetric cryptography. And I think my gut says that the CLM vendors are going to pick that up as well because it's sort of right in there for them. But I think the CLM vendors are going to turn into certificate and cryptography lifecycle management vendors. That's my gut. We'll see.
So this saves some of those certificate lifecycle management companies in some respect.
Oh, it does. It seriously saves them.
Like if you were thinking about where that market was going prior to this, like you're like, yeah. But now you tie that in with a really good discovery tool. It's huge.
If
and a
I'm a
communication
certificate
tool.
management company, though, I'm thinking it's going to be like a curve, a bell curve, where we're going to see that industry spike
Oh yeah.
because of this, but there's going to be something beyond certificates. And so what do you build beyond that? What's the next gen architecture that isn't certificates? And that's what I would be thinking about in my R&D.
Oh, that is so, yes. And the point is that so I was there when Keyfactor and AppViewX, some of the premier certificate lifecycle management companies, were cheaper than dirt. I was like, literally, just sign up. It costs nothing, and then all of a sudden their prices spiked. Okay, like spiked, and because they realized, like, wow, we're getting enough traction. We got market share now, baby. So they had market share, so their prices spiked, and they're still good values. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as cheap as it was. It's not nominal anymore. Like, oh, it's $1,000 a year, big freaking deal. Okay.
Right.
They're riding that hype wave right now. You're absolutely correct. And this is the one thing I like Gartner for, which is the hype cycle. It's actually brilliant. And the hype cycle, they're riding high, and they're going to ride high for probably 3 to 4 more years. Then they better be the ones doing the research. What is next? Summer, I couldn't agree more. Okay. Now, what I think is next is managing your data encryption and your cryptographic bills of materials, and making sure that everything is properly encrypted everywhere. And, like we had HTTPS everywhere, it's going to be, PQC everywhere or something. I don't know. But it's interesting because not just the certificates, not just the cryptography, but the C-BOMs and the communication and everything is going to be a monster need forever and ever and ever. And I got to throw my hat in the ring really quickly. I just literally today signed up to work at Finite State. So I'm going to be working on those systems because I was like, I got to work there.
Right. On the hardware side, right?
Yeah, exactly. On the
Yeah.
embedded device and
Congratulations.
C-BOM. Thank you. Yes, I'm very
Congrats
excited.
to them too. You picked up a gem.
Thank you. That is such a Summer. Thank you so much. That is so nice.
So this gets really interesting when I start thinking about this, right? Because I'm thinking through, how do you manage the C-BOMs, right? S-BOMs have been around for a while, but I haven't seen them manage that effectively yet, Josh. Like, they exist, but they kind of exist in states. We did an interview last week on Adrian's show on ESW around S-BOMs and how Tanzu's actually using it in the VMware portfolio to actually identify where all these malicious or vulnerable code bases are, right?
Yep.
We have to do the same thing for this, right? If I go back to that interview from last Thursday, right, and think about the C-BOM, the cryptographic bill of materials, I now need a way to make all those C-BOMs queryable,
Yep.
such
For
that
your
when,
vendor.
right, for yourself and all your vendors, right? You have to pull all this together, because when an algorithm goes out of phase, right, what the Tanzu team does is they just query in. They're like, oh, here's the 5 places where that library exists. Boom, they swap it out. And it's
So
part of
that's
their
from the
continuous build
producer's point
process.
of view.
Can we get there from a cryptographic perspective? Like,
Yes.
can we
Absolutely.
make it that easy? That, because Summer, you asked this question earlier about, how does cryptographic become code, right? Is this now embedded in my code builds? Like, if I can get to that level that I do with S-BOMs, not everybody's there, but some have proven you can do this. Can I use the same approach for the C-BOM on the cryptographic side and literally just swap out a cryptographic library, boom, retest my app, push to production, I'm done?
And then notify everybody that's getting your C-BOMs that you've made that change. That's
Right.
the important step. So there are many, many ways of doing that. I interviewed Steve Springett from Cyclone DX, and that's pretty much the premier S-BOM, and he's trying to make it. The Cyclone DX is trying to make it the bomb, basically the grandfather bomb. They're going to have the S-BOM, which is where they started, of course. They're going to have the C-BOM. He's working with Alan Friedman on the H-BOM. I'm trying to help Alan.
Yep.
They're going to make it so that the bill of materials is going to include all of these sort of sub bills, if that makes sense. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
And from there, the producers are going to produce these. I've built this software. I've built this hardware. I've built this whatever. And then the question is, now you got to understand, Dave Zenzian with Tanzu said, we're on the producer side. We manage all of the software for whatever ridiculous amount of companies Tanzu handles. So they can just look through all of the bombs because they build them for those people and go, oh yeah, there's a vulnerability and you're using that. So by the way, you really want to change that. Okay. That's on the producer side. He's doing it from the manufacturer side, if you will. We want to talk about from the consumer side. How does the consumer, the customer of your software, they bought your software from you, whatever. How do they look it up? That's what we need to develop. That's what we need is a consumer facing, and I'm not saying the consumer like, eBay buyers or whatever. I'm talking about
but
enterprises.
It's similar to the trust center concept.
Exactly.
Right? With your third-party vendors, it's now just a crypto version of the trust center, which is is your product using quantum safe cryptographic algorithms and make it available for your customers to validate, vet, and confirm that, right?
And let's talk about that for a second, because that raises the other nasty point of this, which is that we've been saying 2030 and 2035. That's not entirely true. Okay? Because if you're sending data out right now that is dangerous, and we'll talk about that in a second, you're already in trouble.
Yeah.
Because quantum decryption may not be around, but this harvest now, decrypt later philosophy, and I know you were getting there, I'm sorry, but it was just too perfect of a segue. The harvest now, decrypt later problem is that they can harvest it now. I mean, how do you think BitSight and Security Scorecard grade you? They look at encrypted traffic and see if it's properly encrypted. You can buy encrypted traffic by the petabyte for almost nothing to test your security systems. Okay. So you don't even have to have your own sensors. It's not like you have to sneak around and putting taps on fiber optics or whatever. You just buy the damn traffic. So I can buy all of Microsoft's encrypted traffic. Not a problem. Okay. And then if I can decrypt it in 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, how much of that traffic is still dangerous to Microsoft?
Right.
Yeah. And that's something that organizations are going to have to start to triage now. What's the future risk, right? What potential risk could be out there? And, I wanted to take a step back really quickly, because a lot of this conversation has been when we flip to the new. What does that intermediary period look like? Because I see a day where we're going to be dual signature systems for a hot minute. We're going to be hybrid, right? There's going to be both happening, where we have classical and quantum safe encryption going on at the same time. How are we going to manage that? How do we make sure we have resilience around that? That's a whole new complexity that I'm starting to tease out here as we go through this conversation, because we're going to have organizations in hybrid models.
I actually had a thing for a while, because we didn't have quantum safe algorithms for a while when the concern for this started popping up, right? I have done hundreds and hundreds of EINS calls on this topic, just to be clear. And I won't name names, but I've done hundreds of calls. And I came up with a strategy. I said, look, if you've got information that you're scared to send out over a TLS tunnel, across the internet, right? We could fix that. They're like, really? Like, yeah, pick somebody, handcuff a briefcase, preferably a 0 Halliburton briefcase with a skinny tie for maximum 1980s drama effect, and send them around to all of your data sharing partners that you share restricted data with USBs with seed codes on them. Because if you symmetrically encrypt and then push it through a TLS tunnel, it's safe. Okay. It's safe for like 2.5 million years. And at that point, I don't care. That's data archaeology, not a privacy invasion,
Right.
And so there is a way to do it without post-quantum cryptography. But considering that if you have an iPhone, you've been using post-quantum cryptography for the last 2.5, 3 years now, iMessage is post-quantum cryptography. Signal is post-quantum cryptography. There are certain people that needed to learn more about that, but the point is that post-quantum cryptography has already been battle tested effectively.
Yeah. Back to data. Harvest now, decrypt later. That's your prioritization mechanism, I think, right?
Yes.
Because you have to look at what data is most sensitive that has a life cycle to it, has a lifespan to it, right? Personal data, healthcare data, right? All that data, stuff about me is relevant 10 years from now.
Does that mean that you have to have an inventory of your data, though?
Well, that's another problem, my friend. And data classification and an inventory of data. And by the way, I need you to add another column onto your data classification matrix. I need you to take your restricted data and break it out into libraries. I've got restricted data, health information. I've got restricted data, credit card information. I've got restricted data, whatever, the categories, right? The libraries of information. And then I need you to tell me the data half-life. How long is it until that data decays down to internal only or public or something? It's not restricted anymore. And if you tell me 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, and PHI is what, 100 years? 20 years past the life of the patient, I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roughly 100 years, 105, something like that.
Call it 100 years for now. Easy, nice round numbers. It's definitely past quantum decryption day. So PHI data, you better not be sending out. The moment you can use post-quantum cryptography for that PHI data, you better be using it. Because there's lawyers out there hearing the term negligence whispered in the winds.
I mean,
Which means now.
It brings up a whole new conversation, though. How liable are organizations in the future for something that may have been, stolen 10 years ago?
Oh, God.
What's that liability look like, right? If a nation state stole my data 10 years ago and they decrypt it next year, how liable am I?
If when they buy on eBay that classic Ming vase or whatever and ship it, there's a big problem with that, because number one, you're not even supposed to keep business records that long. So how, if you're like, I don't know what I was doing, like, how long do you keep firewall configurations? How long do you keep records of which cipher suites you were using?
Yeah.
Do you keep it 10 minutes past when you swap them? Because I don't think so.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a problem.
No, I smell future
much-
lawsuits. That's all. And you know
The
how
amount of
some of
lawsuits
these
are gonna happen.
legal organizations we'll see commercials on TV for it, right?
Was your identity stolen 20 years ago?
Right.
Call us.
Exactly.
We'll sue the CISO.
Exactly.
Not necessarily the CISO. By then, I don't think so. It's going to be the company is going to hold the liability for this in
Probably.
some form or
But,
fashion, right?
They're going to drag some guys with canes and long beards out of retirement homes. Which cipher suite were you using in 2018? I don't know. That was 70 years ago. What do you want from me?
No fees unless we get money for you.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah, it'll be a class. There's guaranteed class action lawsuits all over the place.
God. Y'all are horrible. Just so we're clear, y'all are horrible.
We are. We are.
Don't give them ideas, damn it.
They already have the ideas.
Please, we
They're just
haven't already thought of
waiting.
it.
Come on, lawyers are ambulance chasers. They're waiting for this
Absolutely.
ambulance to go
Absolutely.
chase. They're like, I can see it coming.
Right. So here's
the
a
question
question
is-
for you guys, because I'd love to kind of bounce this around a little bit. For some of the executives, the leaders who are listeners here, how do they start to do a reality check? Is there a crypto agility maturity matrix where I can judge where my organization is today? Right? Where I can
Yes,
say,
but it's not. I
I
haven't
have
released
no
it yet.
idea what encryption I have, all the way out to we have C-BOMs for everything.
You're killing me. I actually built it, but I haven't released it yet. Give me a little while, damn it.
Oh, look at you. I like it.
I get. So my guess is you gotta do an inventory first. You gotta go out and scan and figure out where this stuff is, right? So I went down the path thinking through this, like, what do I do after you hear this segment and you're like, oh shit, what do I do now? I went out and I said, all right, how would I go get inventory? Right? It's great that I have an inventory spreadsheet, but at the end of the day, doing this manually is not going to do it. So I found a couple open source resources, and they're in the show notes. One is CryptoScan, and CryptoScan uses the C-BOM format from Cyclone DX, by the way. So this starts to build your C-BOMs. Great. Now I can start to get my hands on what algorithms are out there. Where are they? It gives me a starting point, Jason. I think everybody has to go grab the CryptoScan, or IBM has one called C-BOM Kit. They're both open source. I think they both use the
good, too.
Cyclone DX C-BOM standard. So whichever one you use, you're going to get an initial starting point for here's where all your cryptographic stuff is in a format that you should be able to use for the future, right?
I want to point
And I
out.
think-
Go ahead,
go
Summer,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think at the same time, if I'm a leader and I really want to be active in this and not passive and saying, go give me an inventory and tell me, start also considering what is the most important data and what are the most important systems for your organization. You might not know the names of them as the leader, like the servers, you don't need to know that, but be able to articulate what is the most important to this company that we are able to do. In terms of the services you provide, the capabilities that you have, the objectives and those things, that really is what your cybersecurity leadership should be asking for anyway. So that prioritization effort becomes something joint. And also say, go get me an inventory. Let's talk through it. Let's come up with the plan. But I think get very active if you're a leader in being able to articulate the importance of things.
Because if you start to understand those systems and what's critical, Summer, and you're going out and getting these C-BOMs, you can start to bring this data together. That's going to help you with your prioritization step, right? Is to be like, oh, those are important systems. And oh, by the way, they all have vulnerable cryptography libraries in them. That's got to be our highest priority so that I can start to develop a plan and a set of costs to go back to the executive team and go, okay, guys, here's where we're exposed like immediately on high sensitive systems. Here's where we are. Here's what we need to get to. How do we move forward? Right. Those are kind of the first steps, but we also have to think about the crypto agility component to this too, which is, okay, I'm going to go solve those systems, but let's do it in a way that scales out for the future. Let's not just do a one and done, right?
I mean, when I just want to make sure we're clear on all this. Systems isn't only applications. There's hardware ramifications to this, guys. So
there are.
Let's make sure we're not forgetting about that. If we still have hardware in our data centers, we need to make that part of the list as well, because you may have hardware that doesn't support.
Actually, the highest priority of categories of things we need to do in this is mostly hardware, because that's our firewalls, our web servers, our externally facing pieces.
Yeah.
Because our place that we are most exposed is anything that traverses the open internet. Okay. So anything that traverses the open internet, we want to lock down first, because that'll solve the harvest now, decrypt later problem, at least at the moment you do it.
Right.
So that's your Palos, your checkpoints, your F5s, your Imperva WAF, your whatever, all of those things that are client facing, that are external open internet facing. That's your number one priority. A lot of that is hardware. Some of it's images, don't get me wrong, and containers and such, but a lot of it's hardware and, or cloud hardware or whatever. And so we need to get on those vendors first thing. But network traffic analysis software, which if you don't have, this is a great excuse to go get some, will help you find, and the open source variants are quick to get you off the ground, but in the long term, you're going to want something that actually analyzes your traffic and says, hey, something's sending from our net block and it's unencrypted or, encrypted badly or whatever, so that you can go figure it out, because some idiot set up an FTP server and forgot about it or whatever.
Yeah, Zeek was one of the tools on the list I saw, and that's really for the network traffic work. Yeah.
Yeah, Zeek and Corelight is the commercial version, right?
Right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And Extra Hop, and there's commercial stuff, there's open source stuff, but whatever it is, please watch your traffic, especially your client-facing traffic. That is the number one first place to get started, and the number one first place that you're going to find things that you don't have to do the updates. Oh, look, there's a Palo. It's on TLS 1.2. Hey, Palo, when I'm old. Here we go. Palo, when are you going to have the TLS 1.3 with post-quantum crypto upgrade? Oh, we'll have it in 4 months. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're not negligent now. You have done your due diligence. No, I'm not a lawyer. Don't take this as legal advice. I anal, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. But you have discovered, you have checked with the manufacturer. As soon as the manufacturer comes out with post-quantum crypto, you're going to test it and install and follow the manufacturer's recommendations. You're doing pretty good. I'll shut up. Sorry.
Just get the rest of your systems. Yeah. But the hardware and the cloud ones are going to be the big ones.
But that's on AWS and GCP and Azure.
It is. But again, you're running a lot of systems there. There's a lot of SaaS-based applications running on those platforms that you happen to use in, like Salesforce and ServiceNow and all this other stuff, right? So you want to make sure those systems are quantum ready. And some of them already are, some of them will be soon. So it's not like the sky is falling, but then there's so many downstream components, all your custom code libraries. Like, this is a massive amount of work. That's where I think the scanners, the C-BOMs will start to help you get your arms around this.
The key is start doing the discovery now, right?
That's right.
Yeah. The other thing, as I was out talking to people on this topic, they think Q-Day's coming before 2030. So we've been planning this to get ready by 30 and 35. Some like, we may see it sooner. I don't know. I don't know how realistic
that topic is.
I know.
There is a guy on the MITRE cryptography list where, by the way, Bitcoin was first announced. That paper first came out on the MITRE cryptography list. I read the list when I can. Normally it gives me like major headaches, but it's brilliant, brilliant people, insanely brilliant people. I am not worthy to read the list. Let me be clear. But there's an actual guy that wrote a presentation called Bollocks about quantum decryption. Does not believe it will ever happen. And I wrote him back. I said, look, are you okay with the fact that I have to operate on the belief that it may happen and protect against it? He went, no, that's totally fine. I'm just talking about the math. Operationally, you have to assume it may happen. Cool. Now, with Microsoft coming out with the measure on a superconductor, yeah, it may happen sooner. We'll see.
We'll see. There are great references to the Post-Quantum Computing Coalition, some tools out there for people to get started if you haven't already started to figure out where your cryptographic algorithms are. Hopefully this segment gives you a starting point of what you need to do to get there. Yeah.
I don't know, Matt.
I think it's start practicing your cryptoga now, and we really have to end the segment with a namaste.
Here's what I hope doesn't happen. 4 years from now, we're not referencing this Say Easy Do Hard to say, why haven't we done anything yet?
Yeah.
Jason, in 4 years, I'm going to start hitting you. Okay. Just because you know that's probably what's going to happen. I'm just going to, Jason. Wham.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of something namaste, like quantumiste. No, it doesn't work.
Namaste on the old keys, on the old certificates. No.
Quantiste.
There we go. See, we're getting the cryptoga. Yeah, cryptoga. And we're getting cryptoga out of the way. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. If you're attending RSAC 2026 conference, come find us in Broadcast Alley. Otherwise, we'll see you next week on Business Security Weekly.